Hello everyone and welcome back to the Den of Chaos that is PE1, the arena system in this Alliance tournament. Coming up right now we have Of Sound Mind going up against Phage and Terra, and before we go into anything I would like to note that Phage and Terra have brought their flagship piloted by Die-Hard Psy, which is their Leshak. So it'll be really interesting to keep an eye on that, and if it dies, expect some very shiny explosions from them. Of Sound Mind, however, have brought a Navy Scorpion, Sleipnir, Basilisk, Osprey, Navy Osprey, Gnosis, Navy Caracal, Bifrost, Jackdaw, Caracal, and Kestrel. So a kind of generic good shield ships team. What have Phage and Terra brought for us, Rain? Phage and Terra have brought a Balgorn Leshak Damnation, a really heavy armor core built around, and interestingly, a T1 logistics in that Execura, but they have a lot of tank and a lot of tackle. The real question, however, is going to be how survivable they are.
Yeah, sorry about that. My mic had broken out. So, Phage and Terra have brought everything in closer at range, whereas Of Sound Mind are clumped up in a ball. I'm not quite sure if they're... I want to say they could potentially be attempting what we know as a Tinker, but maybe not. We'll have to see as this match is starting.
I think the lack of a Battle Badger signifies the lack of a Tinker, at least for
no
me.
Badger, no Tinker.
No Badger, no Tinker.
No one has really done anything. We see drones out. Those are all shield drones from Of Sound Mind. We see, I want to say, tracking disruptors going across, reps going across, especially on Phage and Terra's Navy exec, but no one's really moving. Maybe these are all kiting comps, and obviously you got to like stay close, but not too close. No one, what does it say? This
is a little slower
a minute
of a
in,
match.
Yeah, this is very slow of a match. Like, it's been a minute, and no one's, like, they're moving, but they have not moved towards or away from each other. I'm not quite sure. We've seen in the past where these teams, are both kiting comps, and it's usually whichever pilots go in first and make the first move are the ones that lose. And so knowing that and knowing how it works in the past, maybe these teams are very iffy of getting way too close to each other.
Yeah, I think beyond that, this is especially on the part of a Sound Mind, I think a good call. Right now they're just hitting this Navy Execura. I don't know why they're doing that and not firing at the T1 one. It's the only thing that has reps for them. They should have the range to start shooting at it from where they are, but instead they're focusing on some of the support of the Phage and Terra team, just trying to pick away at it. Maybe trying to eat away at some of the Execura's cap, I suppose. But yeah, it looks like there's also a small bit of damage going on to Dark Hardon in the Gnosis.
Yeah, Phage and Terra, or Of Sound Mind splitting now to attacking the Damnation rather than the Navy exec, but the Damnation would be, I'm going to say, like dramatically tankier than a Navy executor. It's a T2 battlecruiser with links. Obviously, it's good to primary if you want links off the field, but in terms of tank, it can definitely tank all this damage being dealt out.
Yeah, no, it's going to be... I think both teams right now are just trying to... Oh no, here we go. We can actually see the fat team, Phage and Terra, are actually starting to move in. We can see the newts being applied to that Gnosis now. Finally, we're seeing some aggression out of this armor rush team from Phage and Terra, and we're seeing the reaction from Of Sound Mind, but it's a kind of slow. They're moving some people away, but it looks like stuff is getting caught here by these battleships. They've managed to sneak up on top of this Gnosis and start applying the bonus newts of that Balgorn and Leshak and lock him down. Obviously, newts are very potent against shield teams because the majority of their tank relies on active shield hardeners. With those turned off, that Gnosis is going to drop.
Yeah, and additionally, so the Leshak obviously dishes out immense amounts of DPS for a T1 battleship, or what's qualified as a T1 battleship in this tournament. However, it takes time for that to build up, so as we see 7 minutes in, and how greatly they're applying to this Gnosis, dropping into low shield, they're finally getting somewhere. And Phage and Terra's Navy Execura is being primary. No reps on it yet. Oh, now they're being applied. Not sure if the Execura was jammed or maybe having...
there we go. They found the right Execura to shoot at long last. They have sorted and they've noticed the Navy in front of the name. Execura gone, reps gone. Now they're going to be able to kill that Damnation, and it only cost them a Gnosis to find out.
Exactly. So the Execura off the field, Phage and Terra have now lost their Logi, so therefore, I was going to say, it's only, I want to say, just a race of how long and how long they're able to stay alive.
Did not activate his ADC at all. Completely eliminated from the grid in very little time at all. It looks like this Leshak is going to be on its own and hopefully dead very soon.
Yeah, so of sound mind, timing their DPS to just volley through Phage and Terra with the Navy Executor now going down, which they weren't able to kill earlier. So getting that Navy Scorpion, Sleipnir, and then even items such as the Osprey Navy Caracal to align their DPS, or in the actual T1 Caracal,
Yeah, here we can
to hit
actually
all
see
at
some of
once.
the intended way that this fat team is supposed to work. The Vengeance, zipping out, grabbing that caracal, boom, immediately dead. The second they can start tackling down these ships and applying the newts and pressure of this Leshak and Balgorn, things die very, very fast. But this shield team from A Sound Mind has piloted well, they've stayed away from it. The only thing that they've lost is that Gnosis. Made a few bad calls, but they're pulling it back. They're showing that you can make mistakes and still do damn well in the tournament. It's all about who makes the least mistakes, not who flies perfectly.
Yeah, there's no, I was gonna say, it's near impossible to fly perfectly. And shout out to Suetonia, because there's a guy here in a Kestrel, and I know Suetonia is probably super ecstatic about that, so props to the dude who brought a T1 frigate to this tournament. Sentinel now for Phage and Terror, almost, yep, now he's down, while the Balgorn, looks like the Balgorn and the Vengeance probably getting primary next. The Balgorn's dropping rather quickly without that Executor there to keep him alive.
And that makes sense. You're going to expect that Leshak to have a hell of a lot of tank on it. You know, it is a faction. Sorry, it's a flagship. Oh, it's a flagship Leshak. So it's going to have a lot. Hopefully, if they fit it correctly, it's going to have some faction smart bombs. It's going to have a really expensive tank. It's going to have some interesting mid-slot choices to take advantage of all the fitting that's you know, left around. It could be an expensive loss mail for Phage and Terra.
Yeah, and so, like, props to the Leshak. I think he's solo taking down this Navy Caracal, who's sitting there with reps, he's just sitting there and just punching through the reps in the tank. While and the Balgorn, now at half armor, is barely keeping alive. It seems like he's still the primary of Sound Mind.
I mean, you can see, obviously, like, the power that these two ships bring here. Even though they've got no support, they've got no logistics, they've only got a damnation, you know, the Vengeance is doing very little at this point, they're still killing stuff. Like, they're still actually having an impact on the match. This is doing, like, these two ships are doing more than the 4 ships of the previous heavy BS-focused team that we saw before, just on their own.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, that's credit to the Leshak, and that's probably why we saw so many people pick it. It is a very heavy hitter for a battleship, and relatively cheap in points. So if you look at, say, the Balgorn to the Leshak, so the Leshak is granted a T1 status for the tournament, even though I think in many players' minds it is definitely not a T1 battleship. Balgorn, we're finally seeing broken armor and falling. I believe, I want to say the reload of some of those missile ships was probably going through, and so now they're able to finally volley through the rest of his tank.
Yeah, you can see there that red bar staying about half full as it has for most of the match. Of Sound Mind just putting rounds down range, and there's pretty much nothing Phage and Terra can do about it at this point. They've got a Leshak, they've got a Damnation, they've got a Vengeance. The best they can hope for is picking off some more of this support and getting the moral victory that way. You can see there they're going for the Bifrost, trying to take out another ship with them.
Yeah, and so for the Leshak, especially since it's a flagship, if it lives this round, then Phage and Terra can actually use it in future rounds. So even though they lose this match, the tournament's double elimination, so therefore they will go into the losers bracket and be able to still fight their way, hopefully, to victory. So keeping this Leshak alive is actually beneficial to them, because once you lose your flagship, you cannot bring it back.
Yeah, there's actually something to be said for not killing your enemy's flagship if you're expecting them to use it against another team in the future that you might want them to defeat. But outside of that use case, I'm pretty sure if Sound Mind don't care about that anyway. They're going to just go for this kill mail, and Godspeed to them. I want to see it.
Yeah, so the Leshak just has to stay alive for 2 more minutes, and it does have those damnation links. You
Oh
can
man!
see it. I was gonna say, you can see him actively repping himself back up, so he's trying to stay alive. If you look at actually the
Wait a
defense
second.
bar,
Yeah, look
half
at
of
the
it is
active
active
defense
reps.
bar.
Yeah, half of that is probably the Leshak, or the majority of it is the Leshak, using self reps to keep himself alive.
That's actually bigger than the attack bar of a Sound Mind, like, unless they heat. I think this Leshak can actually probably survive until the end. They have to kill those links, or he'll just tank them forever.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say too. Additionally, with the way a lot of these missile ships deal out damage, they have to time it all at once. And I say that, but there's really only the Navy Osprey and the Scorpion left, so they have to time that with the Sleipnir, which can deal out like consistent damage. Whereas the Scorpion, it's like burst damage. It deals a lot of damage, then has to reload. Deals a lot of damage, then has to reload.
They're
So the
still
chances.
going into this Leshak, though. They're still just pouring damage into an endless pit that's going to absorb that damage forever.
I know.
Oh,
And
I say that, but it's
he's
in
doing
half
just
armor now.
okay. He's in half, but he may still rep. I hope.
Oh god,
It's going up and
he's
down, up and
probably
down.
coasting purely on injectors at this point. This man is probably pressing more buttons than you've ever seen in your life.
Yeah, so these battleships having a lot of modules having to manage heat. Hopefully he didn't burn it out. He has 45 seconds and he's in structure. Oh,
Oh my
no.
god, come on, dude. I believe.
Come
Die
on,
hard,
Phage
don't
and turret.
die.
Stay alive.
Live. He's rapping again, yes.
Maybe he had like an AR or something and reloaded it. I'm not quite sure, but he's like struggling just to stay in armor.
30 seconds,
He's
come
low
on.
health.
Come on, you lost him for so long. Live.
Oh no.
No.
And he's done. So Leshak down, flagship down for Phage and Terra. Therefore they cannot bring it again. Only the Damnation left, giving them at least 10 seconds left on the clock to try and loot that flagship, because once the loot is gone, nobody can actually loot it once the match is over.
Yeah, that is the first flagship down, though, so that's probably going to be the most expensive kill mail of the tournament so far. I hope that our desk is able to pick that apart. Right now, it looks like that Damnation will live, tanked by the ISK cost of that Leshak. With that, let's send it back to the studio and get the down low on exactly what went down in that match.
Two Abaddons.
Two Abaddons.
Did I say three?
Yes. Where's he catching reps from? Is the Proteus repping here?
Could be.
But you can't have cap transfers on an Executor. A remote tracking booster?
No.
Docking request denied.
Money, money, money. Two flagships down at the same time in two different arenas there. Phage and Terror losing their flagship to Of Sound Mind, while at the same time in Arena B, we had the Salt Farmers killing the Unspoken Alliance flagship. So we've gone all the way to match 7 of the day before anyone lost a flagship, and 2 die at the same time. Oh, how are we spoiled. Now, we do actually have a pretty cool kill mail tool, so we can actually have a look at the kill mails, or sorry, I should say loss mails of these flagships and see, are these alliances a bunch of poor Tech 2 fitting scrubs, or are they going to pimp it out and just, you know, really bling those ships out? So if we get that first kill mail up, I think it will be the Unspoken Alliance one. I'm hoping. Here we go. So that is the Unspoken Leshak there. And, I mean, that's not... I mean, that's pretty poor. That's not too blingy there, is it?
The big thing to point out is it's not an Abyssal X-type rep there.
Yeah, that's a big one, because the Abyssal X-type rep would have given them maybe even survived at that point.
Yeah, it would have been a lot more rep power there. And you saw he was able to survive so long until his ancillary ran out of Dynamite pace there. And so the large ancillary armor repairs, they do get a repair bonus from the nanite charges, and once it runs out, it goes significantly down.
Yeah, he's got that Abyssal Micro Warp Drive over there, got to go fast, and then just a bunch of other faction modules around, including those true Sancha smart bombs, a small and a medium there, along with the small and medium newts on that thing as well. Although, again, I mean, Bart, what do you think? Is this a good flagship Leshak fit, or is this sort of awkward?
In all honesty, the only thing that I could, you could spend more money on getting the large armor repair.
You should spend more money.
You should spend more money on getting the large armor repair, and other than that, I mean, you could officer the smart bombs. Oh no, you couldn't, not with their fit. Yeah. So the thing with the Leshak is there's no damage modules that are officer for it. There's no guns that are officer for it. So there's only really so much you can spend on one. Besides making the X-type repper better, this is pretty much about as good as you're going to get. So
yeah, I think those X-type, the reppers, the Abyssal reppers, are going for quite a pretty penny on the contract market at the moment. Just huge amounts of value can be had if you get a good one, especially in a tournament setting. We saw this last year with the Balgorns and the Toby Webs. You'd see them selling for 60 to 80 billion for a single web, and some alliances being true ballers and fielding 2 at the same time.
Well, the big thing here is, like I said earlier, the Tech 2 disintegrator does take a lot of fitting space. So if they would have downgraded for a little bit less damage, they could have changed to better smart bombs or better newts. I mean, and if you're bringing a flagship, instead of bringing the ancillary, bring an actual active rep. That way you don't have that fall off. So, I don't know.
So let's see if we can have a look at the other flagship that died, the Phage and Terror flagship, which is not ready, but we will get back to that one in a moment. In the meantime, I am told that we do have a graph ready. Now, the last time I was 0 for 2 on calling up graphs, so I'm hoping to break that streak and correctly name this graph. The graph about to appear on your TV will be picks versus bans. Does this count as a win for me if nothing is wrong? Most draft, yeah, picks and bans. Thank you. So that's 1 for 3. So we're doing all right.
I was really hoping you'd be wrong. I mean, I was just going to tell you just go and walk out.
I probably would have done. Just that's it. I'm going home. Clearly, no good at this. So the Shack, we could have predicted that. We did predict that. No one's very surprised about that. So let's just ignore the Shack and move on. And have a look at the other ones. So is any of these jumping out for you? It looks like the Basilisk, interestingly, is getting picked and then killed. Are banned almost as much, whereas the Blackbird's getting picked a lot more, but not really banned. I mean, what are you reading into any of this, Laz?
Well, I mean, the Blackbird, even though it is an ECM ship, it is relatively lower tanked because the slots or mid slots that take the ECM take up. So you can't fit that extra tank for a shield setup. So it does have a very thin armor tank if it's brought in armor comp. What I am not, I mean, all of it's pretty straightforward there. I'm surprised that the Vindicator's getting banned so much. The Leshak, actually, the bans, I'm not as shocked about. Like I said, we expected that. But the important thing about the Leshak and the so-called flagships is the flagship ignores the ban. So they could still bring the Leshak ban of flagship. So that's probably not the reason why they're actually banning it, besides the high DPS and fitting slots.
Yeah, and of course, right down the bottom, we see the Widow. It looks like it's been picked and banned once each. Interesting. I mean, the Widow is strong, especially in an ECM comp. We see a lot of ECM ships there, the Rook, the Widow, and the Basilisk, all doing the dishonorable jamming thing. Ewar being picked up there with the Curse, and then a bunch of Logi. So not entirely unsurprising, and I'm super excited to see where this kind of graph goes later on in the tournament as we have, you know, dozens of matches getting into it. But speaking of matches and predicting who is going to win, remember I told you that you could win 500 plex on every match if you just correctly predict them? Well, we have a new list of winners, so congratulations everyone I'm going to read out. You've all won 500 plex each. So we have Angus Sinulf, Quicksilver Select, Somberblink, Boo Sharu, Crimson Krogan, Jurikide. You guys have really difficult names sometimes, you know that. John Whittaker, that's better. Niels Battle, Barbara Valentine, Wingman 4508, and Naruret. Congratulations, all of you. You have won 500 plex by simply predicting right. And interestingly, I'm looking at the numbers here. Most of them, it's about 200 to 300 correct predictions for every match, some of them less, some of them more. The highest so far, Volta versus Seven Sins, with nearly 450 correct predictions. So it looks like Volta was the firm favourite there, unsurprisingly.
Something right here looks like smug.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
No.
Thanks. Thanks, Elise.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I can't see anyone else as smug as Elise. Now we have 1 minute before the next match, so we'll come back to that other kill mail in a little bit later. This one is going to be We Want Your Risk versus Darwinism. Darwinism, strong, competent alliance, don't need no flagship, they never submitted one. Impressive. No AT history either, whereas We Want Your ISK, also not submitting a flagship, but they went 1 and 2 last year. Who's it they lost to? Do you happen to remember?
I think they lost to Shadow Cartel and, was it Exodus?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty solid, to be fair.
Yeah.
But I mean, let's just go quickly around the horn and see who we want to win. I genuinely don't know which of these teams is probably the stronger team. Both of them forgetting to field flagships is not a good sign. But I'm going to go for We Want Your Risk.
I'm going to go with the same thing, just because they do have some tournament experience, and their old setups were a lot of all-in setups, and I like to see those.
And Bart?
Yeah, We Want Your Risk. There's no gates for Darwinism to camp in the AT.
Oh, there you have it. Shots fired. Shade from the studio here as we go to the boys in the booth for the match.